Hi, and let's review round two. So right here I have the net profits per team, and we can see that the net profits per team for most teams have increased. And for one particular team, if you look at KA Cars, they went from 18 million to 76 million for a um, team record for this simulation, for this game of the simulation. And we have a lot of other teams going over $70 million in profits, which is amazing. But we still have some teams less than that that need to really focus on increasing their profits. Because in the real world, this is what companies are driven by: the amount of profits, net profits they can generate. That's what increases the stock price. That's what excites investors. That's what returns equity to shareholders. So this is a primary focus of companies. Now, if we look at the points per team, we see that some teams did very well in points. We have one team with over 744 points and another team with 600 points. But remember, round two is a difficult round to get high points in because so many teams did so well in the first round. And the way the overview points is, it's a round over round comparison, a year over year percentile change that earns you the points. So when you do very well, like making over 900 points, the next round is difficult to really get another 900 points. But remember, you're trying to average around 400 points. So most every team is already averaged above 400 points. So everybody's still in the A position of the simulation. But just remember that you always have to continuously do better than the previous round. So all your financial ratios have to be higher, your revenues have to be higher, your profits have to be higher, your stock price has to be higher, your forecasting has to be better, your cash management has to be a surplus, your operational investments have to double. So you're constantly only as good as last year's results. Okay. Now, if we look at stock price per team, we have two teams here with the highest stock price, which is amazing. And we have a big range from between $10 to $30. And we have this company probably had the Smith Motors, one of the biggest increases in stock prices along with cars. So, and what drives stock price? Earnings per share. What drives earnings per share? The amount of outstanding shares and the amount of net profits. So if you buy back your stock or you increase your profits, you're going to have a higher stock price. All right. So if you look at sales per team, we have a new leader in sales, J Automotive, followed by Pavo Real. So these two teams are tops in sales. Being tops in sales doesn't necessarily mean that you're tops in profits. As I used this example before, someone wants to give me a company for free, but I have a choice between a $5 billion in revenues company and a $100 million in revenues company. So most people would say, yeah, give me the $5 billion company in revenues. But that's not what I would choose. I would ask, what are the profits? Oh, well, the $5 billion company has $1 billion in losses every year. And the $100 million company has $65 million in profits every year. Oh, I want the $100 million company. That would be the choice. So it's not always, sales are important because profits come from sales, but if you're over advertising to get high sales, or you're really pricing your car low or increasing the features in your car to be very high to get a lot of demand, that's great. You're going to have a lot of sales, but that might not translate into a lot of profits. And you're in business to generate profits, not necessarily sales. But sales are good, but profitable sales are better. So if we look at earnings per share, we have a couple of companies here who course corrected and watched my last video and was able to greatly increase their earnings per share. And that's a wonderful thing. So a lot of companies saw that last video. Okay, I messed up in how I did my profit margins. I didn't do as much practice. I didn't really research anything. And now they took that to heart, watched the video, read the user's guide, played a few practice rounds, and really increased on their performance. Okay, so that's just some of the graphics for this round. Let's look at the leaderboard. We have plenty of teams that made over 400 points, and if we look at the cumulative points, you see the total points. A few teams are more than halfway. It's only been 2 rounds, and a number of teams are more than halfway to the 2,500 points. And you'll see how this is a cumulative points basis. So teams really need to, this is a long-term goal of accumulating 2,500 points. So doing bad in one round only sets, doesn't make you fall behind permanently, because the next round, as long as you do better, you can make a lot of those points back that you may have lost in the previous round. Okay. So if we look at the demo, this is my demo, which is like your practice game. So the first thing, I'm a year ahead of you guys. You're working on year 3. I'm already working on year 4. So don't copy any of my inputs. I'm just using this as a demonstration. So this is how I would do, if I'm a student, pretending to be a student in the simulation, this is what I would do. First, I would completely analyze my overview points. Where did I do well as far as increase and earn points? So I earned points in my revenue increase. I earned points by increasing my profit margins, which in turn greatly increased my financial return on equity, return on assets, earnings per share, market capitalization. And if you don't know what any of these ratios are, you need to look those up. Hopefully you had MBA 502 finance that gave you a good idea, or even financial accounting to get a good idea of how these ratios are calculated and how to improve them. My book value went up, but here where I failed, my forecast, I went from near perfect forecasts to below 90 percentile forecast. Means that I only sold 79% of the cars that I forecasted. So I lost points there. I lost 100 points because I had a cash deficit. So this could have been 600 if I got this 100 points back and made 100 points for a surplus. So I really should have been at the 600 point level, but because I had this deficit, which a lot of students will write to me, Professor Nugent, I had a surplus. I don't understand how I had this deficit. This simulation is broken. And I said, okay, calm down. I don't think the simulation is broken. Let me look at your game. And as soon as I click on production, I see they have all this leftover inventory. And I said, oh, aha, you didn't sell everything you forecasted, so you didn't get all the profits that you should have gotten. That's why you wound up getting an unexpected deficit. And they say, oh, okay, I understand. I'm just a poor business person. I don't really understand anything about business, but now I have a little bit better clue. I'm like, okay, you're learning. It's good. Of course, after I look at the overview and analyze how I performed year over year, I start to take a look at my gross operational and net profit margins and keep those in mind. Next, I move to my assessment tab. And this is where I look at my star rating, I look at my score, my percentile rank. Just like an SAT score, I did better than 55% of the previous teams playing this simulation. And it's an average performance. If I want to improve, I click here and it gives me helpful hints on how to improve. So I'd review every characteristic on the assessment tab here to get an idea of what did I not do well in and how can I improve. Then I would review my charts. Specifically, the performance chart is the most important, where you go down to the bottom and you look at potential versus sales. And I see that I had so many cards built. Of course, I met all my potential, but the problem is I met it and had a lot of excess, a lot of unused inventory, which is bad for my financials. So this is a very important thing to look at that particular chart. The industry, I'd go in here and I say, okay, which company was #1 in points? How did they build their car? What were their financial statistics and their ratios? And once in a while, I get a student say to me, oh, but this isn't realistic. You couldn't do this in the real world. I'm like, okay, obviously you know nothing about the real world, because in the real world, I can go to any website and figure out the characteristics of the build of any car. They advertise that, and the selling price of the cars, at least the manufacturer suggested retail. And then I can go to the last year's annual report and get all their financial information and financial ratios. So this is a totally real world event. And so you can go in here and look at your competitors and see how are they building their cars and what are they doing, how much are they spending on advertising to really propel them forward beyond what you're doing. And that's why this chart, the marketing chart's useful, because it shows you by team how much they're spending in advertising of each of the vehicles. So you can get a better idea of where you are by looking at that. And then of course your financials are backed up, and then you start the simulation over again. So when you start the simulation over again, customer expectations have changed, price levels have changed, forecasting is going to be higher, and then you have to redo your marketing. Of course, this dynamic marketing budget has increased, so you've got to figure out what's the best scenario as far as spending your money on marketing. The student user guide helps for effectiveness. And then in production, the key thing in production is what's nice about this sim is that it let me retrofit last year's inventory and resell it. So even though I'm forecasting 4,000 cars, I only have to build 3,149 cars because I can retrofit the inventory, which means next year I'll get all those profits back and be able to perform even better next year. Okay, and then of course in the finance page, you want to make sure that you look at your. I have a nice surplus here, so I could go ahead and buy some additional levels of operational efficiencies to help reduce the cost of manufacturing my car and increase my profit margins. Then I could go, so I still have a nice surplus. I can go and maybe start retiring some debt if I wanted to, and maybe buy back some stock. And then I can process my round. This is, again, insufficient data capture. Oh, I didn't do the marketing page, so I'm not going to process the round. But this is like your practice game. So I really suggest if you want to perform better in a team competition, run some more practice scenarios. Even copy over what you did in the team area into the practice area in the same round, and see how your results stack up against the computer players. Okay. So that's my 12-minute or less video wrapping up round 2, giving you some helpful hints, and hopefully you'll be able to compete at a higher level next round and get closer to being a dominant company in this industry and/or the 2,500 points you need to get an A in this project. Okay, thank you, and I'll talk to you soon